So, I mean, honestly, I think we have an incredible lineup of speakers today. Well, throughout the whole symposium, every time I look at the CVs of you guys, I'm always very impressed. So, the first speaker we are having after we have finished the breakout session is Dr. Michelangelo Canzoneri. Dr. Canzoneri is a proven digital leader who is passionate about improving and enhancing the patient experience across the digital continuum. He has expertise in optimizing and transforming the operating model of healthcare and pharmaceutical businesses, while conceptualizing and creating new business models. He also co-leads the digital transformation at the healthcare business of Merck and is based in Germany. Michelangelo obtained his PhD in bioprocess engineering at the University of Bielefeld, Germany, and before joining Merck, he held the positions at Corium Therapeutics AG in quality control and Sanofi, where he worked transversely in R&D, industrial affairs, technology and innovation, and digital transformation. He's also a strong supporter of education and bridging academics and industry. He's a professor at Frankfurt University of Applied Sciences, Germany, and a guest lecturer at MIT in the USA. So Michelangelo, welcome to AI Star, and we look forward to your talk on how to enable the next generation manufacturing excellence through the digital continuum.
Thank you very much, Gabriele, and thanks for having me. I'm very delighted being here with you guys today here in the virtual roundup. And very pleased to also have the chance to introduce to you our tangible translation on how we want to enable the next generation manufacturing excellence through the so-called digital continuum. So before we go into the details of how we want to do it, we actually started in a way that it may resonate with you. We had a couple of interactions and dialogues internally within the organization at Merck, but also with external colleagues. Colleagues that are facing very similar challenges that as we may have seen afterwards. While having these interviews, we heard about a couple of things that we're trying to summarize within this picture. So what you see is, for example, data silos. So silos that we hear very often, that we have silos within organizations. But let me pause a second here on this aspect. So it's not about the silos. And I think if you ask individuals, nobody would say that anyone is creating a silo. I think the topic and my free interpretation of that silo is that we are focusing on our work. Like while we are focusing on our work, we of course cannot focus on the entire organization and see who might be interested in my data, in my activities, in my experiments, in the information that I'm gathering and maybe generated. So the problem, though, is not that I'm focusing. The problem is that how we connect those unconnected silos, data silos. I also heard a lot about a fear towards AI and how AI may replace our jobs, or incompatible technologies that may evolve over time, like a history-driven technology landscape, because there were different needs, different aspects, and how they work together, and how we can exchange data assets. Another aspect was about digital. So we know that there are different understandings of what digital is and what it's not. And that is not the problem. The problem is that I think we need all to make our mind, what does it mean for us? What is it for us as an organization? What should it help us with? What should it enable? And so the different understandings become one meaningful vision that enables and unlocks the full potential of our data. I also heard about frozen information, data and information that is there, but it's so hard to get access to it because maybe you don't know who has the right to give you access, or maybe you get it in a format that you have to transform it again and again, and then you may have it in a file that is not actually usable, and so on and so on. So it's actually there, but it's so hard work, manual work, to get meaningful insights of that data. The big data treasure box. Honestly, we have a lot of data. But how do we get access to it? How do we unlock that treasure box? And we do have some access to the data where some of the use cases have been already created and been scaled. But how do we really unlock that treasure box to get the full access of internal and potentially even to external data sets. Cybersecurity as being more and more important, as becoming more virtual, more cloud-based, data-based. Of course, we need to protect our data, and with that, our patients. And unstructured data, a big topic. And how do we make it in a structured, meaningful way that has the right ontologies and the right architecture to help our colleagues internally and ultimately our patient to be faster in delivery of our drugs. And speaking about delivery of our drugs, the business model of pharma is a challenge for all pharmaceutical industries, including biotech. As we know, one of the biggest pain points is that it takes 15 years to bring a drug to the market, up to 15 years. And it costs up to $3 billion, one single compound, from the starting phase to the commercialization of that drug. And approximately 90% of all projects that start in R&D just don't make it to the market. And if they do make it to the market, it is very difficult to identify who is the right patient for this drug. And we know that it's so difficult because we are different. So how do we get access to that difference? How do we get deeper insights into that complexity? So that is another aspect that we are working on. And the last, but at least very important topic is the person in the middle of that platform. You see a person holding a book on the right hand and a device on the left hand, an electronic device. So if you ask that person to read the content, the book, on a device such as in a Kindle, for example, it may not necessarily create the same emotions. So it's about emotions. Like changing technologies, it's not the deal. The deal is how do we embrace the emotions that the new ways of working, the new technologies help me and create positive emotions and replace the old positive emotions that I had. For example, writing with a pen versus writing on an iPad, for example. Like, how do we do that change? How do we help that transformation with us as humans to get through that journey to unlock that potential that we're looking for? So if you look into the vision, that's exactly the opposite of what you've seen before. Like connected data silos, having the patient in the center of everything we do. And all of these will help us to unlock the data treasure box, but at the same time to enable personalized precision and preventative medicine. So we looked into the organization and then we started seeing a lot of different activities. So let me show you that slide. And I ask you, what do you see? And you may say you see numbers, you see different numbers, you see different shape of numbers, maybe different colors. So that all is true, but do you see any logic? Do you see any concept? Well, if you think about it, it looks like having a lot of digital and data activities, and how are they linked to each other? So if you put it into a structure, you may see there is a structure, there is a logic, and they're all in a meaningful manner related to having, for example, from left to right, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and so on and so far. So what we did is actually looking at all of our activities and all of our pain points and needs of the pharmaceutical industry and put it into so-called key digital pillars. Those key digital pillars are describing that structure that I mentioned before. And at the same time, it's actually our starting of focus where digital, we believe that digital and data will help us to get closer to the vision that I mentioned before. The first one is about fast to POC, so which includes in silico research, computational chemistry, synthetic biology, for example. The next one is about augmenting our clinical development, our clinical trials, about patient stratification, clinical trial design, and success prediction, and digitally enabled patient safety, for example. The next one is digital insight generation, a disease understanding, scientific insights, and knowledge management. The next generation manufacturing process development is about biotech manufacturing development, continuous manufacturing, and actually developing those complex processes from small scale to large scales for different needs, from preclinical up to commercialization, which ends up to be in Pharma 4.0, which includes all Industry 4.0 aspects and includes all regulatory requirements. We'll talk about that later on this presentation. Next one is about real-world evidence and clinical trial data analytics. Then augmenting sales reps, omni-channel HCP engagement, so healthcare provider engagement and resource allocation. Next generation reporting, like next generation regulatory submissions, serious adverse event reporting, or key performance indicators dashboards. Next generation transversal content management and omni-channel marketing, and last but not least, the digital health and digital therapeutics. So this is a transformative journey, and in order to unlock those treasures and having those structured in the KDPs, or our focus, where we believe that digital will help us to allow this transformation, we have to focus on those must-win initiatives within those key digital pillars. So we have to set up a global digital and data governance, define the data strategy, identify skill gaps and define the upscaling strategy, and identify resource needs and both transversal and functional needs. So what we did is asking the entire organization about their needs, the long list of business digital projects. And then we saw how many of those are within the vision and within those KDPs. And so we came up with a prioritized key digital projects that are within those key digital pillars. So you see here the key digital pillars, and you see some of them projects are very transversal, and some of them are very focused within the key digital pillar. And of course, we have many, many more, and all of them are important. But those are the prioritized ones that we believe will help us to get closer to our vision. Now let's talk about a very concrete activity within Merck Healthcare, which is the next generation manufacturing excellence. So how do we get from manufacturing to smart factoring? So in the history, we have been always working in labs and manufacturing areas with technologies, different technologies, whether it's, for example, in chemistry and biology and in producing cell lines. It's different technologies to make that actually happen. And while you're using that, this is done by the scientists, for example, or by engineers or by technicians. A lot of colleagues and people working in order to make that happen. That is the focus that I was talking about. And while we are generating data and information, whether they have been captured electronically or not, this always helped us to generate those manufacturing processes, to develop them for different needs, whether it is for phase 1, 2, or 3 clinical trials, or anything else for stability reasons, or just for understanding which critical process parameter has an influence of a critical quality attribute. So the vision, though, is now how do we use that data in an end-to-end context? And where do we want to go? Well, certainly we want to be flexible, adaptive laboratory that can flex to meet changing demands, as well as testing and sample requirements. Be paperless, all equipment and workflows linked to one application with all regulatory and data integrity requirements met. Automated, fully automated workflows and collaborative robotics with automated write-up of results. And we want to be descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. So process simulations in silico methods and predictive analytics like risk-based testing, risk-based modeling, and predictive maintenance. But there's many, many more. So what are the fundamentals for getting there? If you look at the application areas, we have from new product introduction to supply chain planning, manufacturing engineering, supply chain management, production, logistics, quality, maintenance, energy and utilities, and health and safety. And what are the enablers to get there? In order to get productivity improvement or enhance customer experience and societal and environmental impact? Well, it's organizational enablers such as strategy and roadmap, digital skills and capabilities, governance and processes, legal compliance and ecosystem partnering. But it's definitely also technology enablers such as data extraction, connectivity, data platform, privacy and security, and data processing and visualization. just to name a few. And when we looked very deep into our business user stories, we came up with 5 key business stories that resonate with everyone and what we want to achieve for the manufacturing of the future. It's about the command center to enable the end-to-end visibility of lab and production operations for increased efficiency of operations. It's about CMC, regulatory power, and CMC stands for chemistry, manufacturing, and control, which is the manufacturing process development activity of during shaping the process of your drug. And to enable analytics-driven knowledge management and decision-making across the regulatory life cycle. Next one is analytics-driven science. So accelerate speed of development through quality by design, QBD, PAT, process analytic technologies, advanced analytics, and augmenting humans with real-time database insights. Digital lean labs is in order to create the laboratory of the future with cutting-edge digital technologies and lean principles embedded. And digital thread is about advance the quality of science throughout the life cycle of a product and manufacturing process, connecting data silos from drug discovery to launch. So while everyone agreed with those business stories, we then looked into the next level of detail and saying, who are the personas? What are the personas with a day in a life scenario? So we looked into all of the different personas and we came up with 12 different personas that actually describe their activities, their user journey, and to reflect that journey into the digital space. And that actually ended up in then creating our reference IT architecture and the respective ontologies. So while we were looking into those personas, into those key business stories, we went a little bit deeper and identified that we actually are looking in that aspect for that KDP, for that key digital product, from benchtop synthesis to a mature process while commercializing it. So it's actually from the manufacturing process development to commercial production and optimization. It's that end-to-end chain where a lot of different activities happen. So data from discovery and cell line selection, for example, having a target product profile at the beginning and having understood which are the critical quality attributes and how can we influence them through the critical process parameters. Identifying them, understanding how they change over different equipment, over different raw materials, over different scales. And then starting to scale up and getting into the clinical batches, getting new insights about CQAs and CPPs, having the process characterization studies, and having a risk assessment, understanding the robustness of your process, and ultimately then having a continuous process validation. So you see there's a lot of activities, detailed activities that actually reflect the user journeys, that actually will help us to understand the full end-to-end cycle and how the data model needs to help us to understand those respective complexities. And last but not least, you see there's a closed loop also within the CMC filing activities, and so that we have actually automated filing in the future as well. And last but not least, on this slide, you see a lot of digital activities already, digital and data activities through this end-to-end value chain, which I just presented, which are business opportunities on the one hand, and on the other hand, we have digital enablers, such as technology, governance, and people. And some of them are very end-to-end driven, like the end-to-end master planning, knowledge management, but there are also others that are very focused for the individual step within the manufacturing space. So let's get a bit more concrete. What does it mean? And one example that I can show you here is we do get an increased complexity along the drug development lifecycle. And if you look only on this, it starts with the DNA, you get a cell line generation. Hopefully you will get one that will be stable enough, which needs to be tested. Then you go into fermentation mode, you get the cell culture in the upstream process development activities, you purify the drug, you get into the formulation space, and through the entire time you have analytical development where you develop the analytical processes or methodologies, And then you start to transfer that into also GMP requirements. And so you have a lot of transfers, knowledge transfer, tech transfers, and so create knowledge package, which has been accumulated over time to ultimately serve the manufacturing and validation of that process. So if you see how many data that creates, only that through the connection of all of that data sets, to the different activities that are connected to the data lake and with the respective data model, it starts to get meaningful. It starts to get some insights into the complexity that we're facing. One tangible example that we have done, which I am happy to share with you, is a tangible example here on the next generation cell line development, which we know is a massive work of having a lot of different cell clones, and you identifying the right clone, which has the right productivity and the right quality of your drug and the right stability of the cell line over a period that needs to be defined. And then that depends whether you have a batch, fat batch, or continuous process. So see, there's a lot of activities that are interlinked, and that is one of the examples that helped us reduce a lot of time and a lot of effort and to identify the right clones straight away by using that data model. And the next layer that we're introducing is about having a seamless digital continuum. The biomanufacturing 4.0 is about connecting all of the different labs and different manufacturing areas and learning from each other, including deviations, including observations during laboratory work, and how that learning, that insights will help us to be faster and to learn for the next product in our activity, in our projects that we have. And so the question then is, how do we get data visualized while I'm working on a product, rather than me searching for a product where I didn't know that it exists? So you see, it's a lot of learning, and so that will help us to then have the appropriate right first time approach to speed up to talks first in man or first in human, and the proof of concept and the market. The resource efficiency in line with regulatory requirements and synergies and collaboration across global R&D and manufacturing. This will end up to an end-to-end drug development activity. And how do we get there? Right, first step by step. And if you think about what the secret is behind a successful digital transformation, is the mindset. It's how do we get there? So it may resonate with you that you may have a certain product in mind. You would like to have a car in that specific example. And so the car actually here is showing you that this is the product that you want to have, but while you're producing the car, the customer is not happy during the entire time. So it's actually the customer is waiting until the car is ready in the format that he was looking forward to get it. So actually, you may or may not achieve that goal of satisfying his or her needs. So what I'm saying here is that this approach may end up in not being successful, and it may end up of having a customer that is not happy at all during the entire process, and you may make her or him happy only at the very end. So if we don't talk about the car, but if we don't talk about capabilities, so the question is not about what are the capabilities, what are the products that you want, but what are the capabilities that you need. So I want to get from A to B, for example. Well, that's something where we can start, and you don't know actually, by the way, you don't know that a car exists, right? It's not about the car, it's about a capability, about how to get from A to B. And so while we are discussing with the customer very closely what that capability could look like, we start to develop those called MVPs, minimal viable products. So it may be a skateboard at the beginning, then a scooter, then a bicycle, a motorbike, and so on, and a car maybe ultimately. But we don't even know what the end stage is. And there might not be an end stage because this is a continuous learning environment. It's getting a continuous feedback and closed loop with the one producing the cars and the customer. And there are many, many more. All of us are somehow a customer, so we need to be engaged in that process to get the different aspects. And the mindset of having something perfect won't help here at this stage. It's really about getting quick learnings and quick failings. And there's no failure in having a failure. It's a learning that we will reintegrate in the next step. So having said that, what are the key takeaways? It's Biomanufacturing 4.0 is the seamless integration and use of all data generating along the life cycle of drug development, from manufacturing process development to commercial manufacturing. Pharma 4.0 is the convergence of Biomanufacturing 4.0 with pharmaceutical regulations. Fix the basics and connect data silos. Ensure data security, availability, architecture, and quality. And last but not least, enable mindset of continuous curiosity and closed loop iterative learning. With that, I would like to thank you. I'm happy to take all of your questions.
Thank you very much, Michelangelo. Terrific talk. Very interesting and I think very inspiring. So we already have a question from Michael Busman. I will read it out loud. Or yeah, you can ask it yourself, Michael, since you are one of the speakers.
Michelangelo, thank you very much. I was also very happy to learn that you have been in Bielefeld. That's my hometown. Not many people I usually know from Bielefeld because, you know. So very nice hearing that. My question is, when you talk about 90% of the drugs don't actually make it, what is your data on where those 90% are lost, and where is the critical data that identifies what makes the 10% so unique and successful? I think that's one of the central questions. And I like the metaphor of not building a car, but starting with something minimal and going on. I mean, that's the same in software development. However, one of the parts that I see in this metaphor is that all of these things have wheels, and you at least need to have wheels as your initial idea. And sometimes I fear even in pharma, you don't have the wheels in the beginning. So where's this process? Where's the data hidden that would make you much stronger and faster?
Okay, Michael, thank you for your question. Excellent question. So Michael, so let me give you a longer answer on that. So certainly the complexity that we are in, I think I gave you just some aspects of the complexity, which I was only focusing, quote unquote, on the manufacturing process development and manufacturing space. And that already shows the complexity that we are in just to produce, just in quotation, of course, and to develop that recipe for that drug. The next layer, though, is if you start to design the product, the molecule, the mRNA, whatever product that you're designing. And what are the complexities there? The interface to patients. And so we know the complexity comes from us being different, and which I hope we all agree that it makes sense and it's good that we are all different. But that complexity goes down to genomic level. It goes down to the ecosystem that you're in. Think about twins being in different environments that won't develop in the same way. So there's a huge complexity, and the drugs and the food that you take, and that has a huge complexity that we can't see as such at the moment. Same time, we have requirements that we want to fulfill, and we will fulfill continuously, about data privacy, about which data do we get access to enable personalized medicine, precision medicine. We're actually now opening up the space with new technologies and working at digital at scales with so-called big data. But for that, we need to have the right ecosystem the data platform ecosystem, the structuring, the automated ingestion of data, understanding which data gives us in which context, which insights. So actually starting to learn, and it's not the research space, it's not the manufacturing space, it's not the commercial space alone helping us to achieve that insight, but it's all of them together. So what I'm saying here is, because we as humans cannot deal, unless someone can prove me that it's possible, with that terabyte of data within one single brain in that end-to-end cycle, to fully understand that complexity and understand how they're connected, then we need to build it. And that is nothing that anyone else can do for us, as A, the drugs are individual, B, the patients are individual, and the technology that we're using. And that us, and we as a pharmaceutical industry are not disconnected from an ecosystem either. We are relying on raw materials. We are relying on everything else externally, collaborations with other partners, which are absolutely important for us. And so how do we exchange that data sets? How do we align on ontologies? There's way more to do before we can achieve that goal. That doesn't stop us though. That's why we started with very concrete, tangible projects, so that we increase from 10% to hopefully 15, 20, 30% over time, and to start now having clinical trials and real-world evidence data with the consent from patients and physicians to get that data and to use that to improve the quality of our drugs and to be more customized and more personalized in developing those. Do we always need personalized drugs? No. I mean, we know that there are drugs that is not needed, but there is a chance that we know there's an opportunity here to connect the dots, which will help us to get closer to that vision. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you very much. I see there's some work ahead.
Oh yeah, exactly. And by the way, maybe another aspect, Michael. You know, people are asking me about data science, data engineering, data architects, and all of the different roles that we have in digital and data. And people sometimes get scared about that. And that's not the intent, right? It's not about scaring people. It's actually, if you think about it, you don't need to know how to build a car in order to be able to drive a car. So if it comes to driving a car, am I relying on technologies that I don't know exactly how they work? We do. But I need to know how to drive that car. So there are different roles and responsibilities which are actually now scaling and working differently in the future. We need more of those skills in the future. And this is not the data scientist, whatever that means. There are data analysts, there are business analysts. So we have different roles to make that happen. It's not one single role. So I think the complexity comes also from all of these roles working together. And there's no hierarchy in that. It's more about the team approach for the same goal, and each of them contributing to that. And that makes it another transformation, another change in this whole journey, which actually will help us also to achieve that goal. And that is exactly what Merck has started as an entire company, to transform also our ways of working and introducing all of those roles, which exactly is helping us to achieve these goals. And we do see already first successes that makes us very happy and proud and continue this journey.
Fantastic. I think this is an excellent talk, Michelangelo, very insightful. You talked about a lot of very interesting aspects ranging from, you know, what makes a transformation successful, what are the key elements, what would be the vision. I actually have a lot of questions, and I actually see a lot of similarities to what I mentioned at the beginning of today's track. Maybe we can talk about this offline, being cautious of time. So thank you very much, Michelangelo.